Hey, Talia here, and today on I Got Back Up, I'm joined by Dr. Shanali Perera. Shanali studied medicine, and whilst specialising in rheumatology, she developed vasculitis, a rare autoimmune condition. Losing herself to illness, she struggled with image and identity until she found art, and expressing herself through art has transformed her life. So, Shanali, when you hear the phrase I got back up, what does it make you think and feel?
Talia, it just reminds me of my life experience when I was. Just imagine you're on a speed train and you're traveling. Um, you know, can I rephrase that,
Yeah, of
please?
course.
So Talia, that reminds me of my own journey. I was on a speed train with my career, my life, and suddenly the speed train derails and everything that I had worked for comes to a standstill. My life pauses because I end up getting a life-altering rare autoimmune condition. And I stopped being a person and I became a condition. And for me, finding my way back and getting myself back up was such a challenge. And when I hear that phrase, it's almost going back to that moment where everything just stops and you don't know what to do. My life is taken over by a condition, my image, my identity. I had to quit being a doctor. So it was almost like my whole life was robbed. I was in my early 30s, and you can only imagine how every single element, every single part of me was affected.
So
Uh,
then, let's dive right into it. I want you to start where you think most resonates with the person you've become now and your entire journey. And I want you to take everybody back to, I guess, the beginning of where you want to take this.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with me um, being a me specializing in rheumatology. Okay, so and just to give everyone an idea of how hard it was to actually get into a specialist training program, I had to I had to work really, really hard. And it was a time in England where there was about 30,000 trainees and 18,000 jobs. So you can only imagine how competitive it was and what it meant for me to actually get into that specialist program. And I was doing 2 years. It was my second year when I was asked, what do you want to subspecialize in? So I said, I'm quite intrigued by this condition called vasculitis, which is a rare illness, and I'd like to actually concentrate on it in my last 2 years. So I was slowly trying to work my way into, specialist clinics and find out who's doing all this. And then, this is the irony. I end up getting symptoms which were really vague to begin with. So I think I'm going to pause right there for a second from the journey just to enlighten others who may never have come across the term vasculitis. Because I think perhaps even you haven't come across the condition vasculitis, isn't it? It's a rare autoimmune illness, and I'm just gonna spend just a few minutes just to kind of say what it is, just so you are aware. It Autoimmune is something that you're aware of, I'm assuming, right?
Yes. Yeah,
So
yeah.
the body kind of attacks its own. And so in vasculitis, what happens is that your blood vessels, whether it's small, medium, or large, across your whole body, any of the blood vessels can be affected. So multiple organs, whether your lungs or kidneys or heart, skin, nerves, any of that can get affected. And it can be a life-threatening condition. And a lot of the time, it mimics other diseases like an infection or cancer. So it takes up to maybe 3 to 4 years for people to line the dots because the symptoms are so vague, and you go through all the unless you present acutely, unless you're very unwell and you suddenly present bleeding somewhere. But a lot of people have these vague symptoms. You might have tummy ache or a rash or various pains going on. And in my case, it was just I was having my hands were getting fatigued a lot if I used them, and they were clawing, and I could use them, and no one can see it because only I'm experiencing it, and the same with happening in my legs. So it takes a long time for people to actually connect the dots and give you a diagnosis. So I think a lot of people going through it, or any rare condition, I think, until you get a diagnosis or until someone tells you this is what it is, it's it's psychologically very traumatic, Talia, because I thought, and also bear in mind, I have specialist knowledge, okay? I thought, am I actually, is this all in my head,
Mm.
right? And I think for me, that was the most difficult part, right? That thinking that, oh my God, I look fine. I'm saying all these things are happening in my hands and legs, and all my blood tests are fine. Is this something? Am I truly making this up? Like, is it all in my head? And every time I went to A&E, because I was a female medical registrar, oh, it's stress. This is all stress. And I got told, and I'm also thinking, maybe I'm stressed. It takes me 2 hours to drive a 20-minute distance because my legs are going dead and I just stop every 10 minutes.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe this is all stress, and I'm thinking. So literally, so that was how, so I'm in my second year, this was happening, and you can only imagine, I had to sit in front of a training committee to tell them, oh, I need time off because I don't know what's going on with me. So that was extremely, extremely stressful. And it took about 2.5 years for the symptoms to actually come out. And in that 2.5 period, Talia, um, I had to take myself out of the program, go less than full time, and take breaks, like almost like career breaks, and no one knows what's going on. And sitting in front of your training committee, you're fully aware that this is a training program and you have to be in it, and you're letting your colleagues down, etc., etc. All of that stress is in you, right? The worst part is everyone thinking, is she playing up?
Mm.
And for me, that really was, I think, more than the symptoms. I was like, oh my God, that was horrible. And going through all that emotionally, and I think a lot of people this might resonate with a lot of people who have invisible conditions that have taken a long time for people to diagnose, and especially the rare conditions. And I think that emotional trauma was the worst. 2.5 years later, my face gets paralyzed, my hand and foot gets paralyzed. I ended up again having double incontinence and the full works. It just literally came out. And by then, I could hardly walk 20 yards because the nerves that control your heart rate and blood pressure were also affected. And that's why I became best friends with the highway patrol, because I'd be driving and suddenly I'd faint, and they had to move my car so many times. And I sampled so many hospitals around the West Midlands because they had to take me to all these different hospitals. And then it all made sense, but I think the horse had already bolted by the time I got on I got on treatment to reverse all of it, or at least reverse the doubling. I mean, I got double incontinence. You can only imagine what that was like. And for me, and my face, what happened to my face came back up. My hand and foot, uh, they recovered, but I think by then we're talking 2012, that sort of time. Um, I had to sit in front of the training committee again and say, I think I've given it a good go. Um, it's time I leave.
Mm.
And I think for them, And that's the point that I think I felt that, oh my God, you can only imagine, Talia, this work was my life, right?
Mm,
I was a workaholic. My very, perhaps this is very wrongly, my identity was what I was doing, not, not
mm,
Shanali the person, but, this is what I do. And, suddenly it almost felt like everything I'd worked for got robbed, my dreams just went out of the window. I remember my mom was waiting outside, the dean's office when I had to, walk. And I think everyone in the training committee felt relieved that they didn't have to tell me. It came out from me.
yeah.
And I think part of me thought I was relieved as well, Talia, because it was almost like, oh, I had no regrets at the time because I had tried everything possible to stay in the training program. I learned to write from my left hand. I'm a right because my symptoms came from the right on the right first. It took a long time for the left to get affected. So I started to learn to write from my left. I did all sorts of things just to be at work, and I thought that's okay. This happened, and I tried. But I think the person, Shanali, at that moment in time felt robbed, of my freedom to move in every direction. And I felt lost, Talia. You can only imagine when suddenly everything you worked is taken away. What, my house, what I was like, if I didn't have a how to deal with it user guide,
Mm,
because it's not just work, it's your relationships, it's your social life, it's your finances, everything gets affected. And I had multiple layers to deal with, and I just didn't know how. You can only imagine how lost, fractured, and isolated I felt. And how do you get up from that? When you asked me, what, um, getting back up meant, I mean, I know a lot of people have it far worse than me, but at that moment in time, I felt like a bomb had gone off
mm,
and my house was just blown into bits and every single room had to be rebuilt. And I had no idea how. I was angry. I was, I just I was at, I thought, oh, I'll bounce back, but it never happens, Talia. As you kind of have to go through that, and I think find ways to cope and deal yourself.
mhm.
So, uh, yeah.
How old were you at the time then, especially
Um,
when you left the program?
so uh, I was about 33 when it started, so I must have been about 35,
Okay.
35, 36. Yeah, that sort of age.
Mm,
And so what do you do with your I had a house, a mortgage, very luckily for me, I had income. I had taken income protection insurance, which, I had that safety blanket that I had insured myself if something were to happen like this. But I could not stay in the initial bits. I couldn't even walk 20 yards. I couldn't do, in 2012, when I had left the program, my mobility was affected so badly. And because the heart reflexes were affected, I wasn't getting enough blood flow to my brain. So I was fainting. Like having a conversation like this, I couldn't maintain this conversation. Every 10 minutes or so, I'd have to switch off. I'd have to do certain maneuvers to bring the blood back up. So I'd call it my crouching moments because I was like crouching on the floor, and my face would twist, and I'd drool a bit, and all sorts. So I had to learn to like cope with it all, and I ended up renting my house, moving with my parents for a bit, and living out of a suitcase until I decided, what do I do? And yeah, and my journey kind of start. I think my present journey, who I had become now, starts from there. But you can only imagine. I'm from a I was born and raised in Sri Lanka, so I'm from an South Asian background. You can imagine the social expectations and pressures as well, and you're subjected to all those cultural expectations. Your you're a woman who's, I was not married. I didn't have children, and at that moment in time. And of course, when this happens, your life is taken hostage almost, and you're trying to cope with all of this, and you're dealing with so many things. And then, of course, everyone around you you can't keep up with your friends or your peers, or, they're all moving forward and you're like stuck. So I was like that for some time, till I think it took few more years for me to get more stable with my condition, with my treatments and everything, because I had no control over my life at all. I couldn't control my day. Some days where I was in bed all day because I was so fatigued. Fatigue is a massive element in
Yeah.
these conditions, right? So I was just like, I couldn't walk more than, I don't know, 20, 30 yards. My parents had to wheel me to various places. So it was almost like, oh my God, how do I come back from that? What do I do? It's almost you're grieving for a life that was lost and you don't know. I thought the rest of my life, I'm going to just be in a room looking at the four walls and that's it. I will have bits of interaction here and there, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's it for me. And while I was in bed and during these moments, I started to doodle on I think it was Viber. There's this doodle section there. And I started to just doodle. And that was the turning point for me, Talia, because I realized that, oh, hang on, I can control what I create here on this digital
Yeah.
canvas, right? I have lost complete control with everything else, but I can control this. And that was a shift in my mindset. Oh, hey, there are still elements that I have control over. And I think that certainly was a turning point for me, because it was almost like, oh my gosh, drawing what putting my feelings into color and shape
Yeah.
helped me to see something that was invisible. So if I asked you, Talia, okay, you're having a bad day, no one else can see that. And even you can't see that. But I asked you, hey, hang on, can you put a color to that? And does it have a shape? And then you're making it more tangible. And then you're kind of, this is what my bad day looks like to me, right? And I think that's what art was like for me. For me, finding my way back. This is something I forgot to say. I think I stopped being a person when everything happened and I became this condition and I was consumed by it. And I think finding my way back to becoming a person again, one of the massive influences for that was art. Because I think being able to put down what I was going through, that freedom to express it, and also being able to talk about it like this, and share it with others, gave me purpose and meaning to what I was going through.
Mhm.
And that was empowering. And it was almost like the illness tries to take over all the time and distort my reality. And I'm saying, hang on, I'm taking over now and distorting the illness reality by capturing all that ugly pain into something that is beautiful and transforming that pain into something beautiful.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think that it was inspiring to me, as well as I think, oh, that'll be inspiring to others as well. And I think that is how my present journey, um, that's how my present journey began, by trying to say, I'm not the illness, I'm a person first. And I think it was important for me to say that to myself,
Mhm.
Talia,
Mhm.
because I was so, even when things were better and things had got, my fatigue levels were better, I started to, I think Manchester was great, because I think it was Manchester that really helped me to kind of, it was people looking at from fresh eyes, because before that, when I was in Birmingham, you're a trainee, you're these everyone looking after you are your bosses or potential bosses, and that's a different relationship. And then here it was almost like moving cities, coming into a new team who kind of looked at everything differently, and started me on some new treatments, and that really helped me to kind of turn things over. But I was still hiding behind the fatigue. I was still like, oh, I'm too ill to go out, or because I was scared that I'm not going to be accepted for who I was, and I didn't realize till COVID, when because of I'm on quite strong drugs that suppress my immune system. So I was one of those extremely vulnerable people who had to shield, couldn't go out of the garden. So I was forced to kind of like, oh, now sit and think. And I think that's when I realized for the longest time, Talia, I was hiding behind me because I was scared and I was not accepting who I was.
Mm.
Yeah, because I was saying, "Oh, I can't go out because people are not going to be,
Mm.
accepting me." And also, I was in Zurich just before we went on this lockdown. It was the beginning of February, middle of February, Rare Diseases Days, and end of February, 28th of February, and there was this Rare Disease Day event, and I went for that. And I remember someone asking me afterwards, "Oh, do you like to go and grab a coffee?" And I thought, "Oh my God, someone's actually asking me, and I want to go and grab a coffee. Is this person mad?" Like I had such an, like the perception I had, I was scared, and I think, oh, and I kind of say, "Oh, no, no, I'm busy, whatever." And on the flight back, I thought, what was that? And then I came back home and I thought, you know what, Shanali? I'm the one who's making all these things up, and I'm the one who's, and because I think I was scared, Talia, to face my new reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
Like,
it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense because it's the fear of leaving your, let's say, in inverted commas, old self, old life behind, the person you thought you were going to be for the rest of your life, the life that you thought you were going to have. And throughout a load of different emotions, especially grieving that you probably didn't even realize you were doing, um, you weren't, it's a thing, it's you don't accept it's for general in you or for anyone. It's the we don't always accept how we've felt or what we've been through or whatever it might be because of the maybe the negative in inverted commas connotations we put around it. So a lot of the time we're so worried about what everyone else might think, but actually I've learned it's not always, maybe a small percentage, but it's not always the other people. It's usually ourselves, and we're projecting, but we're so afraid of ourselves for whatever it is that we won't accept the things. So we'll project on everyone else, but then like you said, you had somebody ask you for a coffee and it's like, wait a sec, like this is actually okay. Or so you hear, yeah, so it makes perfect sense. And it's once we start accepting these things, whatever they might be, about ourselves, then acceptance is huge. And once you can really accept something, it's the biggest turning point. It's the biggest turning point into the next steps, into letting go, into moving forward, into appreciating things as well. So no, I believe me, I really do get it. And I just wanted to mention as well, obviously we're going to talk all about the art and I can't wait. I have your book of art in front of me and all the colors, and I can't wait. No, honestly, I turn the pages and see what colors come out next. And but you're right, we as humans, sometimes we can look in the mirror and we don't even realize what's going on when we know there's stuff going on with us. And it's like with everyone, you go into a room full of however many people, and a lot of the people have that day probably isn't a great day for them, but you have no idea and they'll never show you. And they will continue living with a mask for however long. And yeah, it's unfortunately become such a norm that people are walking around with so much going on inside their minds or inside their bodies, and they just, you'll never know sometimes behind a smile, behind a face, that what's really going on inside someone else. And that goes for, yourself as well, myself. Sometimes, we can look at ourselves and just be like, I don't feel okay, but I'll just keep going. And just, I guess, see.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And for me, having I can't remember whether I told you this when we had been speaking at an earlier point. When I had my facial palsy, my lips were like, one side of the lip had turned inward. It was so important that I put my lip liner, which is all over my face, not on my lip. But, I mean, I can laugh about this now. And even at the time, I think I was like, oh my God, I literally look like Joker from Batman. It was like that. I was like, oh, it was all the way there. And I had to, like, my eye was so widely open. I had to tape it, all those things. But I think, you know, having my makeup on, irrespective of what I was going through, was important.
Yeah.
When I say just having a bit of lip on, well, I was like, oh, okay. I think I was trying to retain my previous self, or retain that part of me. But at the same time, after all of that, I'm 4'11", and I was tiny, right prior to all of this. I was like a size 4, size 6, that kind of size. And then I went on all these steroids, and I was like baby Michelin, I ballooned out. And so when I looked in the mirror, physically, everything had changed, right? Because
Mm.
my image like completely changed. But also, there's lots of other things going on. So the person that was, 5 years ago isn't the person here. So there were two elements there that I perhaps couldn't really recognize. And, I have to bring this up. I don't know whether you're familiar with Michael Jackson's A Man in the Mirror.
About the song,
The
yeah.
song, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it says, look, it's like the person, you have to look at yourself to change, right? Look, I can't remember the lyrics now, but he
I'm
just,
going through them in my head.
yeah, you're going to remember. But you know what I'm trying to say? And it was almost like, I couldn't. And you're right. When people ask you, oh, how you do, there's so much going on, and you're trying so hard in yourself to kind of comprehend or process what's going on, that you're outwardly, smiling and saying,
Mm.
yeah, but no one actually understands what it's like. And for me, there was a time where I had to rest all day in bed to get to an event in the evening. And for that event, for 3-4 hours, I'd look fine. And people would be like, oh my God, are you back at work? You look so well.
Mm.
And no one actually understands what it will be like after this, because I'll be like in bed the whole day the next day.
Yeah.
This was a few years ago when, things were not so great with me. And then it was almost like, you have no idea what effort I had to make. And people just make assumptions like that all the time. And I think, as you said, the invisible, a lot of people are walking around, whether it's whether it's a mental health condition or a physical condition that's invisible. No one really knows what you're going
Mm.
through. And I think when people see you look well, because I guess some of us, not all of us going through these, but I think some of us makes, somehow make an appeal, like, you want to make yourself look good for, just so that it makes you feel good. But
Yeah.
I think when people see you like that, they're like, oh, you must be, everything must be great, they just don't realize. And I think one of the things that I'm trying to, or I've made it, one of my life missions is to like highlight on that invisibility and say, look, there's so much going on, and it's trying to make that what is invisible visible.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And it's interesting because what you were just talking about, and even the lipstick, I remember sharing this with you, but I want to share it briefly here because it's exactly what you were saying with my own way. When it was about a month or two after my first knee surgery, and I went to a wedding, and I had this beautiful, beautiful dress on. I had my hair done, I did my makeup, and I had to wear, flats. I had to wear trainers because I still had my crutches. I still had my knee brace from my ankle to my thigh. And I remember on the way to the wedding, but I mean, I looked so glamorous. But I remember on the way to the wedding, I broke down in the car because I didn't feel glamorous. I didn't feel feminine. I didn't feel beautiful.
Mhm.
Um, and I got to this wedding, and I never forget during the evening, um, much later on in the evening, I was sitting down and a woman came over to me and she said, "Oh, I was so worried that I was underdressed at this wedding. And then I saw you earlier in the reception and I saw you had trainers on. And I thought, oh, I feel so much better. I don't feel so underdressed because she's got trainers on in this wedding."
Oh,
And bear in mind, I'd already cried on the way there because I didn't feel special, let's say. And I never forget it. I just looked at her and I lifted up my dress, and from my ankle to my thigh was a knee brace. And I just lifted up my dress and I looked at her with a smile on my face, and she, whoa, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize, etc., etc., etc. But again, I mean, had I not, if I had a short dress on, it wasn't, you would have seen that. But I had a long dress on. So in a way, it wasn't visible. I didn't have my crutches. They were there, but I remember I put them in the cloakroom because I was at this wedding and I made a point to myself to not have the crutches. I was like, I want
mhm.
to keep them away.
Mm.
I can do this. I can
Mhm.
do this. So you didn't know. Um, and then this woman basically slapped me around the face with it. And there I was the whole evening getting through it, enjoying myself. And then I got told I looked underdressed because I had
Yeah.
trainers on. I mean, and yeah, so in a way, it's exactly the same. And it goes back to the invisible thing we were saying is you never know what someone's going through.
No.
My brace was hidden because I had this long dress on. You never know what someone's going through. So it's also a just being very kind to yourself, but also being kind to other people.
Mhm.
Because, you know, not only did I get, however I reacted, but like I said, I'd cried on the way there because I didn't feel glamorous. And
Mhm.
then she basically told me. She
Yeah.
basically told me. So yeah, that was a way I get it as well. I get it, and I wanted to share that because it's exactly the same in a different way.
Absolutely. I mean, I've for years I went to every occasion I had to go to. I had to wear my trainers, and because my foot had dropped a few
Yeah.
times, had those braces as well. So I would wear a sari but with my trainers, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna make my trainers trendy with the sari, or and you kind of you tell yourself all these things, and yes, and I so understand that, not that feeling of not feeling, attractive, or your usual self. You feel you're going through those emotions because you're sitting there and you're like, oh, 5 years ago, or
Yeah.
some time ago, that's what I would
Yeah.
be, or that's what I'd be doing. And and I love to dance, and for me, going to places or just sitting and watching, I mean, I enjoyed watching others do that, but there was a part of me that, I just thought, oh, I want to be doing that as well. And you kind of, you have that, you kind of think, oh, wish I was there. But luckily for me, Talia, I had one of those personalities that through others, I got uplifted.
Yeah.
Like seeing others enjoy, oh, yay, that was nice. So I'd sit in front, go and sit in front, and get one of the tables, sit in front so that I could watch everyone
Yeah.
and get that energy. So I think in a way that was important as well, so that I didn't feel too down.
Mhm. Mhm.
Part of you want to be there, but then you're still able to enjoy it. And now I've got to a point that I can actually go and do that. And I think of those moments and think, gosh, those were difficult times. And I also had various people. I think people just sometimes, I don't think people are being mean. I
Mm.
guess it's a lack of understanding or lack of awareness. And I think it's so important that when we talk about this, at least, some people are like, oh, I didn't thought of that. I didn't think of it like this.
Yeah.
Or, and I think it's very important to highlight it, because I think that it's just that it's that lack of awareness, it's just
Hmm.
people just aren't aware, and it's one of those things. And of course, the each culture, I think, looks at things differently as well. And I think you go to certain cultures and they'll be like how they would perceive pain, or how they perceive, oh, something has happened, and whatever, so there's all those elements that people have to deal with as well, I think.
Hmm.
And as women, I think women go through, I mean, men and women would have the um, um, same set of challenges, but I think sometimes some of the struggles women go through might be slightly more so because there's certain stereotyping and stigma attached.
Yeah.
Know, like when I went to A&E, for example, because you were a female medic, oh, the likelihood of you being, oh, this is all stress, or like if a
Yeah.
man went with the same thing, you wouldn't have had that. So this is tiny examples, but I think sometimes the set of struggles women have to go through will be a bit different to what men have to go through. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In well, obviously I can only speak on behalf of women.
Yes.
But no,
Yeah.
I agree, and I think it can be very different. Yeah, for men and women, it obviously can be very different in what we're going through and the way that we might be. Yeah, it can be very different. I agree.
Yeah.
I do. So I want to also, before we do dive into your art, because I want to explore that, I just want to ask, at the age of, you said mid-30s, your dreams and your future that you thought you were going to live was all completely taken away from you.
Mhm.
I want to say how, well, I know the answer, but in my own way. I was going to say, how was that? But yeah, I mean, how was that being, mid-30s and having everything you once thought was going to be your life completely stripped away from you?
Um, I think that was devastating for me, in a way that I can't even describe. I remember someone asked, oh, and I think there were a lot of some because I was from a medical background, people kind of thought, oh, we don't need to have this conversation with her. And I remember going when my face was paralyzed and I had to go and have these strong treatments. Someone like a trainee asked, oh, have you had your eggs frozen? Or because obviously all of these impacts on, do you want to have, and I've not even had that conversation, Talia, because even in my head, I had not had that conversation.
Yeah.
There was this junior doctor asking me that, right? And I was like, so you can only imagine all those little things that because sometimes things can I think my career had been, it was one of those things that it was like, oh, this is where I'm going. And I guess I hadn't met the person who was right for me,
Yeah.
and to even think about, having kids, or, like those thoughts didn't even come to me. I mean, some people might think, oh, that's really like unusual, abnormal, but it wasn't, because it's like if you hadn't met the person that you want to, spend your journey with, or you think that they're not going to, who is going to complement your life, then you don't even think of the other aspects too, or
Yeah.
at least I didn't, and for me, all of that also went out of the window, because at that point I thought, oh my God, my life just froze, everything that I could have achieved, or what was meant to be, was just taken away from
Mm.
me, and I never thought at that moment in time, I thought that's it. This is my new life, where I'm just gonna, just be myself, and, locked in my apartment or whatever. And just, that's it. And I was trying to come to terms with that,
Mm.
trust me, like, oh, this is it. And then, of course, when things come change, and you think, oh, yeah, you can do a bit more, you can do a bit, and that fighting spirit of, oh no, I'm gonna go get my life back, and I think the whole series that you're doing about getting back up, getting things, I think sometimes, even if you're in a wheelchair or even if you're bedbound, you have to face every single day. And I think that being able to face it, it takes courage to face every single day, but thinking, okay, yes, I might be stuck in a wheelchair, I might be bedbound, but I can still move forward in different ways because you can still do certain things or take part in certain things that allow you to move forward or face the day. This is what I was like when I spent a lot of time in bed,
Mm.
and I was and when I started to like draw and take my mind off things, then I started doing a lot of like online like talks or presentations and different things. And I thought, hey, I might be stuck in bed, but I'm still able to kind of talk and share and do things. And I think even after I got my mobility back, I can't even remember whether I told you this. This was the same time during COVID when I was having all those revelations, thinking, "Oh, I'm hiding behind." I started to slowly like train, go walking, and improve my mobility. And I did a 5K walking challenge for Vasculitis UK, and that kind of I thought, "Oh, hey, I'm taking every single person with me who's unable to join me, but I'm taking them in spirit." I was like that was like my kind of thing of like, oh, sometimes we might be stuck in a place, but we can still use our mind. Our body might be stuck, but we still have our mind. So it's all about finding different aspects to you that still is working.
Yeah.
With I'm not trying to sound like, oh, yeah, but you're getting what I'm saying,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like because I think sometimes our bodies might be working, but our mind is not, and we're struggling to face each day or get out of bed because it's we are struggling with how to control our mind. In others, the body doesn't work, but the mind works. So I think in both aspects, I think we can still move forward and face the day. If we have certain interests, certain tools, certain, anything, that helps us to get through the day. Because I think getting through the day, as you might be well aware, sometimes is such a challenge, isn't it?
Mm.
When morning comes, you think, oh, how do I get to just how do I face the day? There's 20, I was going to say, you're not going to be up 24 hours, but you know what I mean? There'll be like a good, I don't know, I can't count now, 15, 16 hours that
Yeah.
you'll
Yeah.
be awake. And how do face the waking part of your day? I know I digressed from your question and I went on a completely different tangent here, but it was, I just thought that was important to mention.
It is important, and I think what's also important is to know that some days, if all you want to do is stay in bed because it's all you can do, then that's completely okay. But it's not, it's allowing yourself to not do that for the rest of, you know, for the rest of your life, let's say. And like you said, finding different things, tools, coping mechanisms that help you get up, get out, and do the things that you want to do or that you can do in your day. And it's finding the tools that work for you. So just because someone, you know, that might be going through a very similar thing to you, um, can do XYZ, that doesn't mean you also going to be able to do XYZ. You might be able to do ABC. It's
Yes,
your journey, and it's trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing, and it's continuously doing that and finding the things that work for you. You hear a lot of people when you're going through things, and that's why I love hearing everyone's advice, because you hear so many people when you're going through things give you their advice, which is obviously so important, and you need to hear it because that's what they would go through. But just because that helps them, it doesn't mean it's going to help you. And I think that's also really important to know.
it's
Always
yeah,
listen, always listen to what people have to say, but Sometimes take it with a pinch of salt and sometimes go, great, that works for them. Maybe it doesn't work for me, so I'll find out what works for me. But yes, you're right. It's facing every day. It's really it's face and it goes back to what we were saying before about facing the things that you're scared about, facing the things that you're scared about yourself or the fears or the letting go, the acceptance. It's really facing the things in life that you're resisting facing, that you don't want to face. It's not easy. It's really not
No,
easy, and it's a very different story for everyone. But again, facing your fears and facing your day then comes with that level of acceptance. And okay, so I face what I need to today. I've got XYZ I need to get through today. It's gonna be a slog, or it might be difficult, it might be hard, it might be dark. But if I can face it and accept it, then you never know how the day might end up panning out in actually good ways.
absolutely. And I think you're spot on saying that in the sense that I might be able to do ABC today, but tomorrow I may not be able to do
Yeah,
ABC. And that's okay as well, because I know I can do ABC today, but give yourself that pacing and giving yourself that break as well. Okay, I did it yesterday. Doesn't mean that I can do it today and tomorrow.
yeah,
I might be able to do it once a week or maybe once
yeah.
a month, and that's okay. And I think the most important thing is to trying to figure out, as you said, what is right and what works for you.
Mhm.
It may not work every day, but that's there in it's there in your tool belt or whatever, because you you can do it. And I think just knowing, having that thought, sometimes when you're having a bad day, I think helps you to get through that bad day
Yeah.
thinking, oh, next week I might go and, I might be able to do this again. Or, I think again, that's another aspect to this, or another layer to the point that we
Mhm.
discussed, I think, is I think that's equally important, because people need to kind of know that even though I can do this today, it might be different tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
that's not just with like your physical health. That's with mental health as well. And I think that's what people don't realize, that you can be on top of the world one day, and if you wake up the next morning and you're not, that doesn't mean yesterday was a failure or a one-off. It doesn't mean that it was just oh, it's not going to happen again. The fact that you were able to even feel those emotions that are feeling on top of the world, or whatever you're fighting through, healing through, going through, if you are able to feel that, even if you don't wake up the next day or the next day or the next day and you're not getting it again, that doesn't mean it's never coming back, because the fact that you were able to feel it once, again, you hold that power and know you've been able to feel that, and it can come back again. It will come back again. I don't know when, but you hold on to that power of knowledge that you've done it. You've
Yeah.
been able to get through it that
Yeah.
day and
Hmm.
feel whatever that love, happiness, peace that you've been wanting to feel. It will happen again. You don't know when, but it will happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a mindset reset that you
Yeah.
just said, right? And I think for people who are listening who might be going through various long-term conditions, when you have flare-ups, sometimes whatever endurance you've built, you go back to zero. So it's like you have to start rebuilding all over again. And
Yeah.
I think having that reset of thinking, oh, yes, I was like this before the thing, and working. I'll go back to it. I mean, it takes a lot sometimes because it can be very frustrating. And you might be like, "Oh my God, I've gone down. I've gone back to ground zero again." And to work through that takes, you know, I think it takes a lot out of you. But I think holding on to that thought that yes, I don't know when, just as you said, I don't know when, but I know that this is the level that I've been, functioning at, and hopefully I'll get there,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's important. So I mean, it's almost that positive reinforcement, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And you're never at ground zero again. You're never at the beginning again. You're never at You're never at the start, because even if the setbacks make you feel that you are, you'll never go back. You'll never go back into the past. You'll never go back to the person you were. You'll never go back to what it once was like. Don't get me wrong, flare-ups or whatever, physically, mental, whatever they are are hard and dark and stressful and exhausting. But if you've got through something once, you have to remind yourself you will get through it again. And even if you have to keep going again and again and again, you will keep getting through them again. And I think that, like you just said, you're never at the start again. You're never at the beginning again. You might have to go through a lot of the same things, but you've already built some sort of resistance and strength
Yes.
from
Yeah.
before. So
Yeah.
just find that and you keep going again.
Yeah. And that resilient strength, and maybe I guess we never know how resilient we are until we are faced with certain
Yeah.
challenges, isn't it? We don't realize that we have so much stored that we don't tap into.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The amount of people that when I went through what I went through say, "Oh, I could never go through what you went through," and which is I get it. It's a completely, it's a really supportive phrase, but also it can be really difficult because you kind of sit there and you're like, "Oh, well, I didn't really ask for this either." But the point is you're exactly that. You hit the nail on the head. You know, please God, people don't have to go through these things, but you will always get through it.
Yeah.
And people that say I'd never be able to get through it, if unfortunately things happen, you don't realize how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you've got, and you will get through these things. And I know it's much easier said than done, but you will find, like you said, you will find your own way, you'll find coping mechanisms, you'll find a new self, you'll find you know what? I say you find a new self, you may even just find yourself. You
I,
can find yourself through these things. And I know some people go traveling, some people do so many different things to find themselves. And sometimes for me, I had to have my accident to find myself. I had to actually go through what I went through to find myself. And I'm still finding myself, but sometimes I hate to say it, and like I said, I wish no one has to go through these things, but sometimes you actually find yourself when you go through these things.
Absolutely. And I think I'm going to say that it was same for me, because I would never become who or become the person that I have become
Yeah.
now if I was doing what I was doing,
Yeah.
and it's just one of those things that, yeah, I truly, it's almost like you're driving on fifth gear, and at 100 miles an hour on the motorway. And then you're pause, you don't see anything, right? Your surroundings is like whatever. And then suddenly you go down to like the second gear or something, and you're going like really slow. And you actually have time to
Yeah.
look at things and actually, oh my God, take in stock what is around you, and more so who you are, what are you about? Because I think a lot of us, as you said, I think we go through life because we've got, you go to school, you go to whatever university, whatever expectations that we kind of go through, very robotic. We hardly ever reflect or pause to actually take in things that are around us. And this is why I think sometimes tapping into who we really are. What are you, what is Talia about? Or what is Shanali about? Who are we as people? I think that is something, I guess we had to go through certain experiences to find who we truly are,
Yeah.
because we just didn't have the time to get to know us, because everything,
Yeah.
everything around us was like, oh, you're trying to keep up with XYZ. And when something makes you pause, really pause, and life stand still. Um, yes, it's unfortunate that these things happen, but it, it actually brought out a different version of you that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a self that can face things and think and look at things differently and think, hang on, oh my God, I never stopped to think about this. Or your perceptions, your attitude may change. And I think it's like, yeah, you're absolutely spot on. I could so relate to what you said, because that was me. I found who I am truly about,
Mm-hmm.
or who I am, when something and I know this may sound crazy, but I'm glad that it happened to me, because because I would never. I mean, I if it didn't happen, I would have been a consultant rheumatologist somewhere, doing my routine stuff. Now I am able to serve a much wider audience. It's not just your group of patients that you see in the hospital. I am able to speak to so many people at a global level and use my work or use my art, and I'm able to do so much more because of what happened. And it's not something that not everyone gets what I'm saying, like, oh my God, why would you want it? But it's sometimes, I think, Talia, I was truly humbled, you know professionally and personally. It was such a humbling experience for me. You whatever, and you think, oh my God, how uncertain things can be, and how life can change so quickly, and things can, and that's one thing I always say when I if I ever do teaching sessions for medical students. I always say, look, today you're a med student, you might be, tomorrow you'll be a doctor, but day after you might end up being the person at the other end.
Mm.
So, when you're, remember that always, when you're speaking to people, or their families, it might be, this might be your mom, your
Yeah.
dad, your friend, or just you,
Yeah.
it might be you.
Yeah.
So always bear in mind that you speak to people the way you'd want to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
spoken to, or how you want to be treated. Because I think, because for me, I had some very good experiences and some not so great experiences being on the other end. And that's why it was so humbling, because you're so vulnerable and you realize, oh my God, you're at the mercy of someone else. And for the first time, I thought, oh my God, all the people that I treated, they would have felt the same way when they were, feeling so vulnerable. And but in my journey as a medic, I always when I broke bad news, I'd cry with the patients. And like, I was one of those people who actually took the time to kind of comment on someone's lipstick, or comment on their hat or scarf or whatever. And I thought that was important. And when I was going through that journey, I had really, I had kindness dealt to me too, in that way. So I think it's important that, as you said, be kind to you, and be kind to everyone around you as well, is so important, isn't it? So I think compassion is something that's dying.
Mm. For ourselves and for other people, but a
Yes.
lot for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all very hard on ourselves. I don't know
Yes.
why.
Yeah. It's I think we're so self-critical.
Yeah.
And and yeah, being a perfectionist, or trying to do everything like, oh no, 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 no. And I think sometimes you're the harshest critic. And you know
Oh
so
yeah. I think we all of us are our own worst enemies. But we sometimes have no idea it's actually us that are our worst enemies. We think it might be other people, but a lot of it's most of the time it's us.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 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 we do it to ourselves,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah.
We do it to ourselves. We don't always realize, but
Yeah,
we do.
yeah, absolutely. It's one of those. We're only human, Talia.
Yeah.
It's just being a human trait, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. It is. And a very powerful statement you made was that you're glad in a way that you went through what you went through. And that's a really powerful statement, because that comes with acceptance, doesn't it? Especially for, when you look back on a time when you didn't want to let go of the past, and you didn't want to let go of who you were, and your future you thought was, all
Mm.
mapped out for you. And to be able to sit here and go, actually, you know what? Maybe a small part of you does still mourn it, which would be so normal. Believe me,
Hmm.
I know that would be so normal. And I think it's in a way maybe healthy
Hmm.
because it's someone you thought you were and were going to be and a life you thought you were going to have. And I think it's really normal to mourn something like that forever, but also to come with the acceptance of, well, this is also me now. And, this is where I'm going to take things. And with that, I want to ask then, so who are you today, and how has art how has art transformed everything?
Oh my gosh. I think I'm gonna uh, quote this lady who said, art is a lifestyle coat hanger for her, right? And I think for me, art has been the savior for me to kind of turn my life around or find out who Shanali really is. Who am I today? I can confidently say, Talia, I'm a contemporary artist. I'm self-taught, and I think the journey that I've gone through, or my vasculitis, it informs my work, or it has a profound impact on what I draw, but and it influences it. But I think I'm able to capture both the physical turmoil as well as the emotional turmoil um, into my art, and use my art as a way of activism as well. So I also call myself an artivist, using art to do all of this, because through that, it's not just a piece of it's not just a canvas. I think it's trying to highlight so much of invisibility, what pain really looks like to someone perhaps who, we all go through pain, but sometimes it's such an invisible, pain is invisible and it's subjective. Your level of how you go through your pain and someone else's will be so different, right?
Mm.
It'll be the same problem, it'll be different degrees, and your level of perception of it as well. But by giving it a shape, a color, a form, I think for me, that helped me to understand what my pain looked like. But also, I think um, it helped me to accept and cope with what I'm going through on a day-to-day basis. So that is why art helped me to find my way to see things beyond, beyond the physical, beyond the whole kind of chaos. And it's finding that balance and that calm. So yes, it was I'm so copying that phrase, because it's a woman who has a long-term illness, who was drawing what it was like in a research study, who said, oh, this is art is a lifestyle.
Mhm.
And I think it also filled an occupational void for me, Talia,
Yeah.
because I lost my career as a medic, but now as an artist and an author, and and an educator as well, because every moment I, like, if with certain opportunities, I teach um medical students, or allied health students, and even patient groups. So it's so I'm kind of trying to find meaning
Yeah.
through art to this journey, but also share it, and I think that's empowering. So it empowers me. It can reach us and teach us. That's what I'm going to say. Art is something that reaches and teaches, right?
I like that. I like reaches and teachers, and so because I've got a book of all your work in front of me, and that you use a lot of. I mean, you use lots of colors. I like colors.
Yes.
I love colors. Actually, if anyone can see, I have a little. Actually, I painted that
Oh,
behind me. That one there. I can't even get to it. That one there.
the one with the it's like almost like the rainbow colors. It looks really
Thank
bright.
you. Thank you. Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. I painted that there, and but my point was is I love colors, and the way
Yeah.
that you can express colors on putting pen, paintbrush, whatever it is, to paper. And it's not just the colors. There's a lot of, well, they're humans. I mean, they are people. You use a lot of kind of bodily figures and human beings in your work as well. And is there a reason I want to ask? Is there a reason why? I know it's all expressing. That's not even a correct word. Expressing yourself is the word.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's expressing yourself, but is there a reason why, or is it's what you feel and the colors and the human element comes to the paper when you paint?
Um, that's a really good question. I think I yeah, a lot of it is intuitive.
Mm,
So I would start off being intuitive and I'd be putting a certain color. And the color depends on what emotion I'm going through as well, because there's so much of different colors I've been using, but like suddenly I'll just paint the whole canvas. Um, and these are digital ones. So it was easy for me to just like tap on it on an app on my phone or tablet, right? So start with a color and then I just start doodling again very intuitively. And I didn't realize that how subconsciously I have been drawing spirals and circles in people's in my figures, in the joints and in the on a
mm,
head. And a lot of the time it's been a lot of it has been two figures. And I didn't realize, so I'd kind of start doing, let my hands do the whole doodling. Then I'd see, oh, I can see two figures. And then of course I'll use the eraser and I'll fine tune it later, right?
yeah.
But in the beginning parts have been intuitive. And it's interesting how I've constantly been doing two figures and all these spiral things are there. And I think the two figures are, one is my my present self, and the other one is the inner self. And I think the two are trying to, in the beginning of the book, I think what I've been trying to do with the book was I went through all the art that I had produced over the years and different phases, and I realized that in the beginning all the figures were, again, this is very subjective, they were kind of leaning down, the heads down. It's almost like defeat,
Hmm.
you know. And then, as time progressed, they're lifting their heads up more. And I didn't realize how subconsciously I've been doing it, but it was only when I was collecting the images for the book, because then I thought, oh my God, I'm going to so, like, the chapters are different phases of my journey. And I think that way, when I came to the end, I thought, wow, these guys at the end are like, they're like, their heads are up, and it's almost like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, I've got this illness, I live with it. Hey, it's like my earrings or my chain, I'm wearing it, but it isn't consuming me. And I think that was very important, I think. And that is something that I didn't even think of until I started putting the book together. It was almost like, oh my God, this is how, and it was nice. It was almost like a visual, it was like a diary, a journal of progress for me,
Hmm.
It's self progress. And I think, and I didn't realize why someone was saying, why circle? Like, why do you have these concentric, like spirals? If you were to, this is my science background, if you were to dissect or cut through your joint
Hmm.
and look at it in a microscope, right? The structure in the bone, or the joints, it is circular, and it's like, oh, am I trying to subconsciously depict that? I don't know, Talia, I really don't know.
So, from what you just said, I wanna how I'm gonna dissect it because obviously everyone's very different. From what you just said, how I see that is it is what you said. It's your past self, old self, and
Mm,
your new self.
mm,
And the fact that you are even subconsciously doing circles, which you said were joints, that's part of, your old career, in a way, the old self. And what it is I think when you're putting it on the paper, the piece of art is an expression of you. It's yes, you've let go and said goodbye to the past, but the past will always be a part of you.
mhm,
You can say goodbye to your past, a part of you can die. You hear that a lot of the time. People say, parts of them have died, but you can never fully get rid of your past because it's exactly who has made you who you are today. And that's how I see what you were just explaining, is that if even that's the subconscious circles of the past, it will always be a part of you, and you will always love a part of it, and you will always, like I said, maybe even mourn a part of it, but it will always
Mm.
be a part of you. Even if you're a completely different person today, it will always be a part of you, because it brought you to the person you are today. And that's how I see it. Maybe that's why it is two figures. It's the old self, the new self, and it's the past still coming out in your life today.
That's a beautiful analysis, actually. I love that. Yes, yes, because I think you're absolutely right. It's always there,
Yeah.
it's there with you. It's like your shadow. I actually wrote a poem about me and my shadow, and it's in the book too. But it's almost like, yes, it's trying to, and I think that's very important to acknowledge that as well, and not also like, I guess, being able to speak about it and not get or react to it emotionally or feel. Yes, there will be part at times you might feel, a sense of sadness, a sense of loss, but I think it's also important to acknowledge that, isn't it? Because I think that's a very good point you made, and I'm going to remember that. So then that is, and I think someone, you may not see that much in my digital work now. I've kind of moved to also include acrylic on canvas, and it takes like a lot more effort. And I realized that I spent a lot of time trying to do the circus in the head, and I didn't even know till someone observed it at. I had a piece that was exhibited at Women in Art Biennale in London last year, and this woman comes up to me and says, "You know, you've taken a lot of time to do the circle, this kind of circly thing in the head. What does that mean?" She said, or she asked me. And Talia, no one's ever asked me that before, and not even I had thought, "Oh my God!" And truly I do, because I remember I take like various like rag cloths and my palette knives just to get those circles right. And I said to her, the moment she said that, I said, "You know what? I think it's control. I lost control of my life, and I'm trying so desperately to have that and in the head that." But until she asked me that question, even I hadn't thought about it. And like, until you flagged up, oh, actually, you are trying to keep this is what the past is like alive, just so that you remember and recall, hey, this was what it was like, and hey, I've actually come a long way, and from where I was. I think that's important to
Yeah.
also remember, isn't it? But not forgetting, this is what made me come
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, that's an important part. And speaking about color, you said, you're drawn to color. I don't know whether you come across this in the book. There's a little section in the beginning, I think. It's about color therapy.
Hmm.
And I didn't realize, Talia, that I was never a red person. Okay, I I mean, I think when I was younger, my parents laughed at me because I was wearing all this dark brown. They're like, "Oh my God, Shanali has a shoe polish on, like, very dark lipstick and very, very, very like shades of brown, or and I wore a lot of black and gray, and not a lot of color,
Mm.
like in my wardrobe wasn't very colorful. The, from the time I'd fallen ill, my phone covers, my trainers, my hats, my gloves, everything was red, right? I'm
Mm.
like wearing red lipstick and, very much into red jackets. So and I used the color red a lot, even in my art. Um, And then I came across this piece where apparently in ancient times, be it the Chinese civilization or the Egyptians or the Greeks or the Indians, they all used certain colors to heal. And apparently, red was a color that people used if they had problems with their blood vessels and nerves. And
Interesting.
I isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And apparently they would wrap these people with red just to improve their blood flow, and if they had like problems with nerve pain and everything I was going through. And can you imagine? I'm like wrapping myself with a red coat,
Yeah.
wearing red trainers, utterly unaware that wow, in ancient times these were so yeah, I had to include that in the book.
Yeah.
There's a little segment about like when you said colors, because people are drawn to different colors. And today, if I might say, Talia, what color can you give joy? Actually, why? Don't think too much about it,
I haven't. I
right?
got the color.
Yeah. Okay.
Yellow.
Yellow. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that something that a are you able to tell me why, or is that something that just came?
Um, I don't know. I think it just came. I think, you look at yellow and I guess it's bright, it's light, it represents, well, for me, maybe there's happiness, also peace in it, but it's joy, it's light, it's bright. And I think, a lot of the time people won't wear bright colors or things aren't bright and they might use a lot more, wear a lot more darker colors. Because yeah, I think there's also that symbolism as well sometimes. I think there's that symbolism, exactly like you said, there's that symbolism as well with bright colors, so people won't wear them or color in them, or even if it's a subconscious thing. I think that happens as well a lot. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, yellow's what came.
It's such a happy color, isn't it?
Yeah, it's yeah,
And looking at what you showed me, the painting that you did, I can see a lot of yellow hues. Even so, there's yellow, but there's also yellow in the background where the blues are,
mm,
and where the kind of the purpley pink hues are. There's still yellow there, so you kind of
yeah.
included the yellow still seeping through it. You know,
Yeah,
it's,
you're right. Yellow seeps down into the green, and then it kind of seeps up into as it goes to the pink, it goes into like the orange as it goes higher and higher. Yeah, and yellow's
yeah.
right in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely, and it kind of trickles down as well. It reminds me of it reminds me of a sunset by an ocean.
Yeah, yeah,
Just the bit that I'm seeing, it
yeah,
just and it's like it's just for me looking at it like a beautiful sunset. The different colors always excites me. It's like one of
yeah,
those things like it's like wow, it's awe inspiring. And do you know something? Things that make you feel like oh my god, that's amazing. Apparently, that sense of awe reduces inflammation on a
interesting.
very scientific,
Yeah,
very kind
no,
of, like it's because someone once asked me, a very medical background, it was an audience that was very medically orientated. And I was speaking about art and blah, blah. They're like, oh, is there any science behind all of this? Like, is there, like, apart from the fact that, oh, yeah, it's been a healing tool for you, is there science behind it? And at that moment in time, I hadn't even like looked at, oh my God, is there like research into do our bodies actually change in terms of in terms of this, and that this is not a massive study. Then I came across like a small study where they've measured people's there are certain markers that go up in your bloodstream when you have active inflammation. And apparently in some people who looked at a waterfall or looked at a sunset or anything that was awe-inspiring, those markers tend to calm down. And I thought maybe it was not just me expressing, what was like that helped. Perhaps there's also that other element, Talia. Who knows, right? Which is healing in its own. I mean, finding you and expressing and exploring who you are, and evoking certain changes within you is what art did to me. But who knows whether it also changed or
yeah,
helped from a inflammatory point. You never know. And I thought that was very intriguing,
yeah,
that whole kind of concept, because I'm trying to use art to bridge that gap. You said you never know what people are going through. And I think even in the medical community, there's a massive lack of understanding that could be improved further about what the lived experience
yeah,
is like, and what the science focus is like. And I'm trying to use art as that bridge, because if you were to make something more tangible or visible, would, the medics think, oh, hey, this is what it's really like,
Mm.
because I can say I'm guilty when I did certain clinics and saw people who were having the same condition. You're almost robotic, because everyone, you're trying to kind of, go through in your a checklist. Okay, this is what you have, blah, blah, blah. And you have no idea what it's like when they go home and wait for 3 months for the scan, or what it's like for
Yeah.
you don't know, right? And if the lived experience is something that you can't learn from a textbook. And for me, having gone through that lived experience, I just want to, like, highlight to the medical community as well, that it's important to kind of, we certainly don't fully understand what the people are going through, that invisibility, the hidden challenges, all of the struggles people go through with the illness that is subjective.
Hmm.
The medics are objective
Hmm.
with their science diagnosis or the science focus, but the human focus of illness is subjective, you
Hmm.
know, and what people go through is different for every, from culturally to whatever, people's perception of pain or whatever there is, and there's this massive gap, and that's what I'm trying to also fill or
Yeah.
bridge, not fill, bridge that gap.
Yeah.
If Do you think that's something adding, adding an extra sensory dimension, right? Like art to this kind of conversation. It's like, open up a conversation, or, trying to look at people changing their perception of illness or stigma. Do you think um, that art can be that factor um, that can change things?
Well, even in a way, how you produce your art is a really interesting way of even looking at just general life. When I asked how you start, and you said you just start and you just kind of do something first, and then you keep going, and then you refine it. In a way, that's exactly how you can look at life. And whatever it is, we're too scared to start something because we don't think we're perfect or good enough, or whatever it is. We don't think we're ready or healthy, and
Mm,
just starting the
mm,
thing
mm,
and not worrying that it's not perfect, or you're not good enough, or you're not healthy, or whatever it is. Not worrying about that, and just starting and seeing where it goes, and seeing where it flows, and where you can take it. And then if you want to refine it, then you can do the perfectionist stuff and refine it after. But I really like that way of, actually, that's how you can look at life, is just doing it, doing the thing, getting out of bed and doing whatever it is, making the phone call, just doing it, and not being so afraid of what could go wrong, and actually seeing where you can take things, and where the dreams can happen, the miracles can happen, even the good things can happen. So in a way, it's a different way of looking at physical illnesses, mental illnesses, or whatever it might is, even things you're scared about in life. That's actually, when you told me how you start your pieces of art, it's just different way of just looking at life. Even if it's reading a book, you want to get through a something 100,000 page book, and it's an exaggeration, but just start with one page, and just keep going.
absolutely. I think that's spot on. It's that whole, I think it's a Chinese proverb, isn't it? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with
Yeah.
one step, right? And it's that blank canvas. You have a blank canvas in front of you. It's almost like, oh, your day is in front of you, which is a blank canvas, right? And you're slowly, offloading onto it,
Yeah.
and it's that kind of filling that empty space of that blank canvas. If you look at it that way, imagine when you get out of bed, your day might be, not for everyone, but for some people, it might be like, oh my God, I've got this whole blank day, right? I don't have anything planned. It's just blank. And then the first thing that you do is actually get out of bed, and then it's slowly, it's up to you. You are the artist, right, of your day. And, you could go back into bed, or you could, slowly fill it up, you
Mhm.
know. And every little thing, you go and brush your teeth and have your breakfast and, get dressed slowly, or, whatever, or you can just go on back and sit on the couch and watch TV, whatever you want to do. You're slowly filling that blank canvas.
Yeah. And then it's like, think about it. You wake up in the morning with you're right, just a plain canvas, and then when you get into bed in the evening, even if it's a 10-second reflection, just visualize the colors of you, because they'll come to you. Just like they will come. Visualize everything you went through, but quickly, and the colors in your day, and you'll be able to see every night you get into bed in your mind, you will see a completely different canvas. And you never know where that, when you were able to look at that even in your mind for 10, 20, 30 seconds, what thoughts can come from that, and seeing the different colors and shapes that have navigated you through your day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think I couldn't agree with you more. And one day it might be red and yellow, the other day it might be gray and whatever. But still, they're all part of your different canvases. And if you, reflect at the end of a month, or at the end of, a few weeks, or even slowly jot it down,
Mm.
hey, oh, this came to my mind. And then you might be able to see, oh, it's like you have your own rainbow,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know and it's those I mean, we are not all going to be happy all the time or sad all the time, right? It might be the rain always stops, and the sun, the sun shines, and then there's, there's day, there's night. These things, they're constantly changing. You'll never have a bad period for too long. And,
Mhm.
equally, how our moods will just go up and down. And I think, and this is one of the things that I'm working on now. It's called Living Loving Mess, where you're kind of the chaos. There's chaos all the time, but there's also calm, and it's finding the calm within the chaos.
Mhm.
So, and it's kind of loving the mess. It's like, it's like me. It's my maiden acrylic collection, and it's almost like, oh, hey, I'm just trying to love the chaos that's around me.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you know what I mean. And it's like
Yeah.
embracing it and saying, and it's okay, this we'll never have calm all the time, but it's finding, it's all those moments that you went through, when you were upset, and that woman saying what she said, with the trainers, you manage to somehow find calm there, to smile and, show her, you know what I mean? Within that chaos, you manage to find some calm, right?
Mhm.
And I think that is such, I think all of us have, in our day to day, we'll all have moments where we'll have chaos, but it's finding that calm
Yeah. Yeah.
within that chaos is.
Yeah.
And I think, people might like to do gardening or cooking, or I don't know, listening to music or dance or whatever they want to do. I think, Talia, it's very important to find something that helps you to um, take the focus away from what you're going through,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
like so you're doing something that's meaningful to you,
Mhm.
right? And you're doing that, and then there might be times that you have free time, and then you're going through a difficult or a challenging situation, and then you think, okay, how do I take my mind off this? How do you take your focus away? And maybe listening to music, or watching something on TV, or reading, or whatever it is, right? And I mean, creativity is something, I think, really heals the human race, I think, because it's something that we've forgotten, or we don't tap into as much as we could. But we are all creative in so many ways, whether you cook, whether you're, arranging your room, how you arrange your furniture in a room. That's being creative. Like, for me, we don't realize that, people say, oh, I can't draw. I'm not creative. But every single thing that we do, there's a creative element.
Yeah.
So I think I think that we need to tap into that more, and we've forgotten
Yeah.
what it's like, to kind of access that element. I know again I've went on a little bit, on a different note there, but that's something I think we've all forgotten.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I agree. And I love how you phrased it with regards to the chaos. It was a beautiful way of putting it, and it's finding the beauty in the chaos. Because we will all go through chaos. But yeah, you've got to find the beauty in it
Yes.
and how you can reframe it, rewrite the narrative, and yeah, it's yin and yang, it's light and dark. You don't get dark without light, you don't get light without dark. So it's the same thing. It's finding the beauty inside the madness that's going on.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that reflecting for 30 seconds every day,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, I think that's so, so important because I think a lot of us, we perhaps concentrate or reflect on all the wrong things. Oh my God, this, I should have said this way, or this is how, like we kind of,
yeah,
the reflections are more critical than just
yes.
reflections or just observations of how your day is gone. And very seldom do you tell, I did this well today,
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
You don't go and say, oh my God, I truly did this, or
right.
oh, I've created this, or I've done this. We just don't, yeah, I think that's something that we all should try to
Yeah,
aspire to do.
yeah.
That's something very important, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And then before we wrap up, I just want to ask you one last question. I wanna take it back to what we were saying before, when everything shifted.
Mhm.
So, what advice would you give to somebody that is, I mean, they may not see it, they may see it as the end of their journey, but actually it's the beginning of
Yeah.
their new journey. What would you say to someone who's right in that space where the darkness just hit them, the rock bottom just hit them, and they think everything's done, everything's over, and their future's gone, the life they had planned is gone? What would you say? It's a big question, but what would you say to somebody?
It's a very good, it's a very important question. And I think it's so easy for us to get wrapped up in the doom and gloom and think this is it, this is the end of the road. But what I would say is this, as just as you said, it's not the end. Don't give up hope. And I think hope is something that we don't hang on to, or even think of sometimes, because we think, oh, this is it. But there's there's always a way out, and sometimes you have to be patient, because sometimes it takes time. It took me years to get to where I am now, right? It didn't happen overnight. It took a very long time. So what I would say is, be patient, be hopeful, and think that any situation, no matter how bad it is, cannot last forever, right? It will change.
Hmm.
So hang in there and do not give up hope, and just be patient till the time comes where things do shift. And while you're hanging in there, try to be open to other possibilities. Open your mind to other possibilities and explore as much as possible. If your energy levels and the mindset allows you, explore, what might be something that you could try. Because I think for me, thinking that everything is lost, I lost all control, end of the day, of who I am, and suddenly to find something that, hey, hang on, I can actually control what I create. And that was such a turning point for me to kind of agency, maybe re-tap into the agency that I lost,
Yeah.
because I think when you're in that situation where you think, you're consumed by that whole, oh my God, this is it. I have no way forward. This is it. This is me. And I think, don't let that situation consume you. Think of the whatever situation that you're in. or has made you be in this, whatever thing that made you be in that situation. It's only a part of you, it's not all of you. And that's very important to remember as well. Whether it's an illness, whether it's a challenging situation, that's just that do not make it all of you.
Mhm.
That would be my advice, because it would, I know I went through quite a long road to answer that, but it was just trying to come to the point to say, look, hey, I think, because we are all very good at letting that situation, that illness, that condition consume us, and then it just becomes us, and we lose the person. So when you're going through that situation, hang in there, and you know do not let the situation take over, and
Mhm.
and be hopeful that the person you will become will be a far stronger person than you were without you even knowing it. The resilience that we spoke about earlier, that we're going to tap into, you think that it's not there, it is there. And if you think, oh, I can't draw, I can't create, what is she talking about? No, all of us, creativity is also within us. And I think it's a massive part of healing. And I think that, I'm just planting a little seed, because, 10, 14,000 years ago, as humans, when we were in tribes and something happened, and you were ill, people would come around you, and they used art and various kind of the arts in different forms. So it was music or dance or whatever, as part of healing, because they wanted that to help the body to actually heal, you
Mm.
know, take your time to heal. And over time, we kind of just forgot about it. And I think it's such an important aspect to our healing, from any situation. And I think we need to pay more attention. It's got a lot of power. So yeah, those are um, my little ingredients that I will leave, or the little snippets, that take home message, maybe,
Mhm.
to kind of don't allow the situation to take over.
Mhm. And well, like the title of your book, Finding Me Beyond Illness. So it actually encapsulates everything you just said.
Yes, beyond. It's seeing beyond, isn't it? It's like seeing past that situation and seeing beyond what meets the eye.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So where can people find your book of art?
So at the moment, Talia, it's on Amazon.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right now. So I've actually, yeah, it's only online,
Cool.
on Amazon. So
Well,
yeah,
is there anything else you'd like to share today?
Talia, I think we've covered a lot, but I think for people who've got a rare condition, and if someone has vasculitis who's listening to this, I think I'm trying to visually verbalize vasculitis. So it's and because I'm personally going through that, but I think visually, visualizing illness. I'm trying to get people to understand illness visually, hoping that they would get a different perception of what it's like,
Mhm.
to go through something that's invisible, something that's long term, and all those hidden struggles. So yeah, that's my parting comment. It's and I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity with you, Talia. It's just been great to kind of chat, and thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh, of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you for joining. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing, well, more of your artwork moving forward in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. And yes, yes, the next chapter is the more adventurous one, right? So,
Exactly. I'm looking
yeah.
forward to it.
Thank you.
Life will knock us down, sometimes hard, and sometimes more than once. And when it feels impossible, know that your story isn't over yet. Sometimes, when everything is falling apart, it's really falling into place. You have the power to rise, to heal, to make magic, and to evolve. And you have the power inside you. We all do. You have the power to get back up.